On May 17, 2021, it was Larry Madowo's first day at CNN as a reporter. He wasn't nervous, he was confident, looked healthier, and his English accent was more polished.
And there's a fear of a new surge by as early as July, then it means there's a possibility that you might have the country overrun with cases and a healthcare system that just cannot handle it.
You couldn't tell that this man was born in a village in Siaya County, or that he once sold mandazi and tea at Gikomba Market after high school. For some, it seemed like just another day, but for Larry, it was a significant moment, especially considering CNN is one of the most prestigious networks in the world and is one of the few Africans to hold such a position. This was just 3 years after he left Kenya's NTV, and in hindsight, quitting NTV might have been a blessing in disguise. On CNN, he has achieved a lot. He has interviewed Bill Gates, President William Ruto, Nigerian musician Davido, Diamond Platnumz, and other influential people. Before even joining CNN, he worked at CNBC Africa and the BBC. His work has been featured in major global outlets, including The Washington Post and The Guardian. And this is just a fraction of what he has done. Of course, it's not just landing the best jobs in the media world. He's also dating, allegedly, one of the hottest media personalities. We'll talk about that later in this video. So let's take a deep dive into the life of Larry Madowo, how he went from a humble village in Siaya County to the global stages of BBC and CNN. And of course, the story wouldn't be complete without touching on his love story with Edith Kimani, who, let's be honest, and I'll say it again, is one of the hottest media personalities in the world. This video is sponsored by nobody, but there are plenty of ways you can support the channel. First, by subscribing. It only takes like a second, man. Right now, we are less than 1,000 subscribers away from hitting 50,000 subscribers. So let's make it happen before the end of this year. You can also support the channel in this way, though I know many of you don't like this option. So let's get into the video. Larry Madowo is the ideal story of grass to grace, which includes going from having no beard to having one. But on a serious note, he was born on July 14th, 1987 in Siaya County in Kenya. He grew up in a small village called Barding. Many may not have heard of that name, but in that little-known village is where he spent most of his early life, leading a simple life like many other children in rural Kenya. His family wasn't large. He has a sister named Liz Madowo, and she was the person he spent most of his time with. And the family was also not rich. Larry grew up without a TV or electricity at home. Ironically, years later, he would end up on television. However, they did have a radio. Larry and his sister would often listen to news from around the world. And it was through these broadcasts that Larry's curiosity and love for storytelling began. His father also brought home newspapers every day, which Larry would read. His mother, a primary school teacher, ensured that Larry read books, so he had no option but to develop a love for them. In a way, both the parents planted the seeds of journalism in Larry Madowo, even though they didn't live long enough to see the fruits. In 1994, Larry lost his father when he was just 7 years old. His mother, Teresa Anyango Madowo, was left to raise him and his sister Liz. The family faced another devastating loss in 2001 with the passing of their mother, leaving Larry and Liz orphaned. Despite these hardships, Larry's academic journey was impressive. He attended Usingo and then joined Karapul Primary School, where he sat for his KCPE examinations. Later, he joined St. Gabriel's Seminary in Kisumu to complete his high school education. St. Gabriel's Seminary was a Catholic seminary, and surprisingly, Larry was training to be a Catholic priest. And I know you might wonder why. According to Larry, he initially wanted to become a priest because priests got to travel the world. He also thought it would be a way to help people. Another reason which now makes perfect sense is that in their area, the priest was the most powerful and influential person.
I wanted to be a priest, so I did go to a Catholic seminary. It exists, St. Gabriel's Seminary in Kisumu.
That's where you went?
That's where I went.
Are there pictures? Are there pictures of you in priest garb?
The whole thing.
Were you an altar boy?
I was an altar boy. I served with the bishop and the priests, did the whole church thing, the whole shebang.
Can I ask you why?
It was my ambition. Like, growing up in the village, the priest was the one person who really had status in society. Like, he turned up and old women...
they knelt down.
They knelt down,
yes.
And they treated him with such reverence And I was like, I'd like to be that guy, because in my little world, the priest was sort of the most powerful, most influential person. I'm like, I can be that guy.
Sadly, by the time he reached Form 4, Larry no longer wanted to become a priest. Instead, he became interested in law because, as he put it, he loved to argue, had a big mouth, and talked a lot. He thought being a lawyer was the perfect fit, not priesthood. However, he didn't end up doing either and found himself drawn to journalism instead. But before he gets there, after finishing school, Larry Madowo left Siaya and moved to Nairobi. He tried looking for a job in media, and his first attempt was at YFM, but he didn't get the job. Instead, he ended up working at his aunt's kiosk in Gikomba Market, selling tea or chai and mandazi. This was his first job ever, and he worked there for almost a year.
I'm in Nairobi at my aunt's place. It's like, wow, what am I gonna do? So my aunt runs a small kiosk in Gikomba, the big sprawling market, and she sells tea and mandazis and porridge to the people who work there. So I go and help her out for a few months, maybe almost a year actually.
Come on.
People buy mandazi and chai for 10 bob, and sometimes they take it on credit.
Come on.
Yes. So that was technically my first job, because at the end of the day and at the end of the week, she'd give me something.
Selling mandazi wasn't Larry's calling. It wasn't something he wanted to do for a long time. He had bigger dreams. His dream was to become a journalist, a dream that felt almost impossible. Even more surprising is that he wanted to work at KTN, one of Africa's oldest private TV networks. Now, at that time, KTN was a giant in the media industry. It had top journalists like Louis Otieno, Esther Runga, and Lillian Muli, who are some of the biggest names in media. To even step into their studios at KTN, you had to prove you are truly deserving. So this young, beardless, and poor boy from Siaya dreaming of working at KTN seemed like a joke, but thankfully it wasn't. After months of selling mandazi, Larry Madowo eventually enrolled at Daystar University to study journalism, but there was one big problem. He didn't have money to pay for his education. Remember, he has no parents to support him, but his other family came together and paid for his first semester. But after paying for the first semester, they couldn't help anymore. The other semesters were much harder because he had no money at all. So Larry decided to quit and began doing freelance writing gigs. Later, he got a job in a supermarket doing promotions, earning just 300 Kenyan shillings per day. While doing these small jobs, in 2007, Larry heard that a station called Basha FM was hiring interns. He went for the interview and got hired. However, it was a Kikuyu radio station. But for some strange reason, Larry was presenting news in English. Unfortunately, he was fired at the beginning of 2008 because the station wasn't making enough money due to the 2007 post-election violence in Kenya. Even though he was dismissed suddenly, the experience gave Larry a solid understanding of Kenya's diverse media audience and prepared him for his next opportunity. Larry went back to freelancing, writing articles, but then KTN started looking for interns, and there was another problem. They only wanted fourth-year students, and Larry hadn't finished school. Technically, he was still a first year. But Larry showed up anyway. Surprisingly, he was hired as a trainee reporter. It was a dream come true because he had always wanted to work for KTN.
The international bandwidth charges for operators has come down 90%. Whether your charges will come down 90% is unlikely, and when that will happen is not exactly clear. Right now, they're at the testing stages, and when that is done, then you can expect it to be deployed on your mobile phone, on your computer. Larry Madowo, KTN in Nairobi.
He worked there for some time and was later promoted to a business reporter. He became the anchor for Kenya's first data and business program, KTN Financial Markets Live, as well as KTN Business Today. He also pioneered the use of social media on Kenyan TV, creating the KTN Kenya Facebook and Twitter pages before any other media house in Kenya had a social media presence. At the beginning of his career, Larry was showing signs of brilliance. His reporting style was fresh, dynamic, and he was unafraid to ask tough questions. It didn't take long before he became one of the most recognizable faces on Kenyan television. However, even though things were going well for Larry, he still had his insecurities. He felt like he wasn't the type of person who should be on television. He didn't look the part, didn't sound the part, because he hadn't attended the best schools.
I have had insecurities with every bit of my being. I was not the most likely person to be on TV. I didn't look right, I didn't sound right, I didn't go to the right schools.
Anyway, after 3 years at KTN, Larry moved to Rival Nation Media Group in 2010, where he began working for NTV. There, he served as a business news anchor, reporter, and editor. He launched a popular show called PM Live and hosted the weekly magazine show Money Matters. In May 2012, Larry joined CNBC Africa, a South Africa-based business station, as a business anchor, covering major economic stories across the continent. This role expanded his horizons, exposing Larry Madowo to international journalism and allowing him to build a reputation beyond Kenya. While at CNBC Africa, Larry became one of the main anchors for market day shows, including Open Exchange, Power Launch, and Closing Bell. He reported on some of the most significant stories shaping Africa's economy, interviewing CEOs and covering global conferences. It was during this time that he honed his craft, setting the stage for what would become an illustrious international career. However, his stay at CNBC Africa was short-lived. In December 2012, he returned to NTV as the technology editor and news anchor. According to Larry, he left CNBC because it was becoming boring and he wanted to cover more Kenyan stories because Kenyans are more exciting. During his second time at NTV Kenya, Larry's fame soared to new heights thanks to this show, The Trend, which redefined Kenyan television.
This is the Trending Talkers, #TTTT, the last word on the week's most awesome stories. Shira Muruk is back in the building.
Hey.
What's up? Anita Nderi is back with us. And Edith Butita as well.
Many Kenyans, I believe and I know, remember Larry Madowo as the host of The Trend. Initially, the show was hosted by James Smart, a journalist. However, after some time, James Smart left NTV and the show had to continue. No one really wanted to take over, but Larry Madowo decided to step in, and he completely transformed The Trend. He brought a fresh, dynamic approach to the show, blending interviews, music, and social commentary. His charm, humor, and ability to connect with both celebrities and the audience made The Trend a success. We can say under Larry's leadership, the show became the talk of the town, with fans like me tuning in religiously every week. Larry turned The Trend into the most popular and watched entertainment show in Kenya. At The Trend, Larry hosted hundreds of guests, including some of the biggest stars from Africa and beyond, such as Ezekiel Kemboi, Davido, Ali Kiba, Sauti Sol, Yemi Alade, and Mafikizolo. Many fans still regard Larry Madowo as the best host the show ever had, which is a testament to his impact on Kenyan television. Larry, however, quit The Trend in 2017. It was a big blow, but he wasn't leaving NTV. But he felt that it was time to focus on other things and give someone else the opportunity to host the show.
This is it. We've come to the end of my time on The Trend. I'm not leaving NTV. I'll be here for the foreseeable future, appearing across our news programming, helping you navigate these extraordinary times. Thank you all for making my dream come true. I'll miss this show, and I'll miss you, the best audience on all of television. Come back next week. The team will have here a great show for you. For one last time, I'm at Larry Madowo. Good night and good luck.
It's worth mentioning that during his time hosting The Trend, Larry was also doing many other things. In 2014, he went back to Daystar University to finish his degree in communications. He also traveled internationally over 150 times, anchored news, wrote articles for the Daily Nation, and worked as a freelancer for big news outlets like CNN International, France 24 English, the BBC, and Public Radio International. Additionally, Larry also hosted a radio show on Nation FM called The Larry Madowo Show.
The Larry Madowo Show on Nation FM is one of my favorite things to do. Right now, though, let's get some music. I'm going to be back in a moment, and I've got some interesting guests also coming up.
After quitting The Trend, Larry hosted a political show called Sidebar. And one of the most memorable moments was this moment when he banned Miguna from the show for using language that promoted violence.
I am going to say this to the country. Revolutions are made from blood.
Are you advocating for violence?
Let me finish.
No, I'm asking a question about
Let me
something you
finish
said.
my statement.
No, sir. I moderate debate.
Larry,
I have
am
a
I
right
going
to
to
ask you a
finish my
question.
final submissions
Because
or
you
no?
said something that people might
Can
find.
I finish my statement,
Dr.
Larry?
Miguna, Dr.
Can I
Miguna.
finish
No,
my
no,
statement?
sir. You did not answer the question.
I'm not going to answer your question.
Then if you don't want to answer my questions, don't come on my show.
Larry, I'm not going to ask.
Dr.
I am going to
Miguna,
finish
if
my
you do not
submission.
want to answer my questions on my own show, don't come on my
Because you
show.
cut me in between.
We'll leave it there then.
Larry, I am not going to tolerate your misbehavior.
And I will not tolerate you
Yes,
and
so
your
I will not
inability.
come back to your show.
Then don't come
You're
back.
not a journalist.
Great. We're going to leave it there.
While Sidebar was a success, Larry didn't stay there for long. Fast forward to 2018 in Kenya, when the government shut down 4 major private TV stations, Citizen TV, Inoro TV, KTN and NTV, during a live broadcast of an opposition rally in Nairobi. The stations had ignored the government's warning not to cover the rally, where opposition leader Raila Odinga inaugurated himself as the people's president, despite boycotting the elections. This censorship was unprecedented in Kenya. It was never seen before, and as a journalist, Larry Madowo was not happy. He posted a daring message challenging the government's actions. I was in the control room producing NTV Kenya's coverage when we were switched off. I am stunned by the government's justification for this flagrant violation of our constitution. Larry Madowo also wrote a column criticizing the government's decision to shut down TV stations, but the Daily Nation, the paper he was working for, declined to publish the article. This led Larry to discontinue his engagement as a writer for the Daily Nation. However, he went on to publish the article on CNN's website and in the Washington Post. More surprisingly, he, along with his colleagues Linus Kaikai and Ken Mijungu, were targeted by the government following their coverage of that event, the illegal inauguration. They were eventually offered anticipatory bail, which barred the government from making arrests, despite being held answerable to the court. After returning to work, Madowo felt that his activities were being censored. He was for a while taken off air and given a list of people he was not allowed to interview. And according to him, this situation was unacceptable, so he decided to leave NTV.
But when I went back to work, my organization, I used to write a column for a newspaper also owned by the organization, and I tried to write about that experience, and I was told, actually, we can't publish that. And I was also told that we're going to keep you off the air for a little bit, just until things cool down, and you can't interview these people when you come back. So not only was I a target of arrest by the government, but then the organization was self-censoring to try and not displease the government. And obviously, it was a situation that was unacceptable for me. I ended up publishing the same column with CNN.com, thanks to them, and I left the organization.
I leave NTV Kenya as I came, humbled and grateful. The job was one of the greatest honors of my life. Thanks to everyone who watched, and to Nation for the privilege of the opportunity. I'm proud of my amazing colleagues and everything we accomplished. Farewell, my friends, stay woke. From NTV, Larry went international.
I think we can all agree 2020 has been a year like no other in our lifetime.
In April 2018, he joined the BBC as their business editor in Africa. He was tasked with leading a team of business journalists based in Nairobi, London, Lagos, Dakar, and Johannesburg. During this time, he appeared on BBC World Television, BBC World Service Radio, the BBC News Channel in the UK, and BBC Radio 4 as a reporter or commentator on African business. On October 5th, 2020, Madowo got the opportunity to anchor his first ever BBC World News Bulletin. While working as a BBC Africa business editor, Larry took a one-year sabbatical in 2019 to pursue a master's in business and economics journalism at Columbia University in New York. After completing his studies, he decided not to return to Africa. Instead, he resigned from his position as Africa business editor and took up a new role as the United States correspondent for BBC News Television and BBC World Service Radio. At this point, there was something different about Larry Madowo. Of course, he now had a beard, and his accent had changed as well. He developed a more Polish American accent.
The Democrats have made a lot of fuss, a big fuss about this. Are they complaining too much? And Judge Amy Barrett, how significant is it, essentially, is her confirmation to the Supreme Court?
And we totally understand. You can't work for BBC and sound like Salasia. Anyway, with a master's degree and a new accent, Larry managed to land another big job at a big platform. In May 2021, he joined Cable News Network, or CNN, as an international correspondent based in Nairobi, becoming one of the few Africans to hold such a position.
I'm Larry Madowo in Amboseli, Kenya, and this is CNN.
Larry covered major events across Africa, from political conflicts to humanitarian stories. Since joining CNN in 2021, Larry has covered some of the biggest stories from around the globe, delivering insight into the political, economic, and cultural influences of the African continent to CNN's global audience. He has covered major events such as the Tigray conflict in northern Ethiopia, historic flooding in Nigeria, the 2022 Kenyan elections, the coronavirus vaccine, the plight of migrant workers at the Qatar World Cup, and the protests following the death of George Floyd. He also reported on the entire trial of Derek Chauvin, the white police officer convicted for the murder of George Floyd. In addition to his reporting, he has interviewed many influential people, including world-famous artists, global CEOs, and the leaders of countries like Sudan, Sierra Leone, Zambia, Kenya, and Malawi. Larry's ability to connect with the people and tell stories quickly made him stand out at CNN. He didn't just report the news. He added context and humanity to every story. This unique approach led to a promotion just 2 months after joining CNN, and was made the network's international correspondent. This promotion saw him move back to Atlanta, where he was soon handed the position of news anchor for One World, CNN's weekly news program. All of this hard work, of course, has been awarded. In 2019, he was listed among the 100 most influential young Africans by the Africa Youth Awards, and in 2020, he was named one of the 115 young global leaders by the World Economic Forum. And there are many awards he has won, but we can't mention all of them now. Now, when it comes to famous media personalities, Larry Madowo is surprisingly one of the few ones to have controversy. However, no matter how perfect someone may seem, a little drama or controversy is almost inevitable. Following his appearances on global platforms like BBC and CNN, Madowo has been labeled a traitor for airing negative African news on their platforms. Some people expect him to be patriotic, so they say, by only showcasing the positive side of Kenya and Africa. However, Madowo sees his job differently. His mission is to report the truth, not to act as Africa's PR person on the international stage. If a country has bad leaders, or if a country's airport is in bad condition, has a leaking roof, or missing words like this one, his job is to say so, no matter how uncomfortable the truth may be. Now, during the 2024 anti-government protests in Kenya, Larry got into a lot of trouble when some government officials attacked him for portraying the country in bad light, saying that it might harm Kenya's image and scare away investors. Away from the drama, despite all the fame, Larry has always maintained a low-profile personal life. He's not the one to chase clout or get involved in public drama, which is rare in today's media landscape. Larry's focus has always been on his job, letting his achievements speak for themselves. But once in a while he shares photos about what is happening in his life, both personal and professional. But there are some things he keeps private. No one really knows what kind of cars he drives, where he lives, or even his net worth. However, there's one thing that he's not hiding: his close bond with a beautiful Edith Kimani. For context, just like Larry Madowo, Edith Kimani is also a journalist. Kimani's media career began at the age of 19 when she won a talent search competition called The Presenter, which was aired on KTN. She was then hired as a reporter and anchor at KTN, where she hosted her own show on the record. Over the years, she earned a reputation as one of Kenya's top young journalists, covering major events such as the 2010 referendum, the Westgate Mall siege, and the ICC trials against Kenya's top leadership. In 2015, she moved to DW as an East African correspondent and later became a news anchor. At DW, she hosts the youth-oriented program, The 77%, and has moderated high-profile discussions at events like the World Economic Forum and the G20 Summit. Edith has also been awarded for contributions to journalism, being named one of the 100 most influential young Africans. And clearly, she's also making waves in the media space. Given that these two are journalists, it's no surprise that they met in the media industry. They have shared a long friendship over the years, often appearing together at events and supporting each other professionally, we can say. However, the photos they share online over the years have added a new layer to their relationship in the eyes of their fans. While no one is sure if they are dating, it's clear that their bond goes beyond friendship. From the pictures they post online, it seems like their connection is deeper than just a bestie relationship. Are they dating? Maybe. Neither of them has confirmed it, but there is something undeniable in the way they interact. Take a look at this picture from 2014, where Edith Kimani surprisingly paid for the meal on their date. Now, ladies don't usually do this unless there's something special about the man. Either you have a big name like Larry or a big, I won't mention it. Then 10 years later, now in 2024, Larry Madowo is still hanging out with Edith Kimani, the daughter of the mountain. And again, are they dating? We may never know for sure. But judging by the photos, maandishi haya sio mageni jijini. Anyway, that's the story of Larry Madowo, who went from Siaya, where the most exciting thing on a good day is a sugarcane track, to CNN, where the most exciting thing is, well, pretty much everything. His journey proves that it doesn't matter if you're from the village. Dreams are valid, and the world is always watching for those who dare to dream big. So next time someone tells you you're just from the village, remind them that Larry Madowo took those same village roots and turned them into a global network. Let me tell you this, man. Keep pushing, keep dreaming, and maybe one day we'll all be telling your story. And please remember to find a beautiful wife like Edith, so that your story can be more beautiful. Anyway, thanks for watching. It has been a wonderful ride. Yes, wonderful ride throughout the year. And maybe this is the second last video. So I just ask you guys to subscribe. We have less than 1,000 subscribers, man, to hit 50,000 subscribers. And it's possible, you can do it. So share this video and tell your friends and your family to subscribe. Let's meet in the next video.